So my name is Jasmeet Singh. I work with ThoughtWorks, principal there. I've kind of played multiple roles last approximately 21 years, from being a technology lead to project leader, multiple delivery management roles, and now being a digital consultant, primarily around the retail and e-commerce areas, for a lot of transformation programs that we do for our clients.
My name is Rahul Kaul. Yeah, just to save time, almost the same journey as Jasmeet, with the same time and tenure in the industry and the roles. Started off as a technologist and then slowly, gradually moved into account management, delivery management kind of roles. So today we would be talking about two things. Right? There have been changes in not only the software development execution methodologies in the last 2 to 3 decades in particular, and the persona of a project manager as well. So today we'll try to look into what are those changes and if that persona is still relevant in the currently popular execution methodologies.
Yep, and purely from a structure perspective, we'll divide this conversation in 3 parts. We'll first cover some key areas around the traditional models, gradually go into the agile model as well, and then cover a lot of role dimensions that we feel require changes, and how is the persona relevant in today's world. We'll breeze through the slides. Some of the slides we'll breeze through very, very quickly, so that it becomes a more interactive conversation than just one way, we speaking and standing here.
And well, yes, we are cognizant of the fact that being in an agile conference and talking about project managers can ruffle some feathers, but we want to assure you, we did not harm any agile practitioners while we created this perspective. These are purely the experiences that we have seen on the ground for, of course, a collated experience of almost 4 decades in the enterprise world. And while we move ahead, so what's this persona that we are talking about? I think, can we have a quick show of hands as to how many of you have in your experiences in the industry either being aware of a project manager role or interacted with a project manager role? Almost everybody, right? So either aware or interacted or maybe even played that role. So our discourse today would primarily focus upon the, of course, we are in an Indian setting, Indian context. So primarily on the project management role that typical IT service organizations have. Yes, based out of India, generically applicable to anything outside India as well, but predominantly this one.
So, in an extension of what Rahul mentioned, essentially all the project management roles, the core still lies in the concept of the core craft of project management. You might start as somebody like an iteration manager. That's the term that we use in ThoughtWorks very, very frequently. Somebody who's just responsible for running the iterations, to a project manager, a program manager, delivery leads, portfolio leads. However, at the end of it, it is all about those that the trivia of scope, time and cost at whatever level you're kind of dealing with. So we'll cover essentially all those aspects with obviously a focus on the core craft as the project management itself.
Yeah. So how many of you can guess who this person is? I know, being a little quizzy, but let's try to see if anybody knows who this person is. Okay, no one? No worries. Name rings a bell? Rings a bell? There, see some nods. Anybody courageous enough to say, why does it ring a bell? Okay, no worries. Does this get the chime increasing? No. Yes? Maybe? All right. So yes, of course, this is Winston W. Royce, and he wrote a white paper in the 1970s on managing development of large software systems. In fact, this white paper is what we in the industry typically has been the genesis of a lot of software development methodologies that we know. This white paper took the center stage in defining some of the ways of working from which we have been a lot familiar with, especially in the pre-agile era. So of course, Probably most of you would correlate to this picture. Yes, this is our typical waterfall, sequential activities going from one phase to other, right? It was a direct inference from the white paper that Winston Royce wrote, and in these phases, from our experiences in the organizations that we have been part of, service delivery organizations and some industry figures, typically time and money, right? Time and money always is important. These phases used to have these approximations of numbers distributed within them. So for instance, requirements probably 15 to 20% of your overall time of the project program, whatever you might call it, execution, and the money that you would usually spend over a program, it would be this.
Purely from a setup perspective, I mean, almost everybody would be familiar with the fact that a delivery program would have an on-site flavor. In any services organization, you would have an offshore flavor as well. I think the key thing to note across all these small bodies is the role of a project manager. So all the blue icons that you see essentially are those key roles that used to play a very, very important role, being the interfaces, even to an extent that it spanned across the entire cycle, right from the inception right to the phase when the project goes into the whole maintenance mode. At the end of the day, this is the person who used to be the core person who was responsible for doing anything and everything end to end.
And since you also see that the most people intensive or the most time and cost intensive phases used to be the design, implementation, verification phases, right? And predominantly in a distributed model, bulk of it used to be offshore, right? The role of the project manager used to be extremely critical for the success of the initiative, because running a tight ship in these phases meant that you would have good budgetary control, you would have good time control, and at that point in time, predominantly in the 90s or early 2000s as well, that would mean that yes, a project will become successful only if we adhere to these constraints. Because predominantly one way or the other, the outcomes used to get defined during the requirement phase itself. And then, since there used to be the two shores as well coordinating, right? The project manager layer, so to say, used to be the interface across the shores. So if you would go back and think, oh, we used to have, well, daily status meetings probably didn't used to happen, but daily emails, status emails definitely used to go out, and who used to send them? Project manager, right? And then weekly governance calls, weekly team meetings, or dependency meetings, etc. Everything, every place you used to see that the project manager used to drive that, so much so that project manager used to be the linchpin, right? You identify this? In typical carriages, you have a linchpin, right? If the linchpin falls, the wheel will come apart, the carriage will fall, everything will come to a grinding halt. So such used to be the spotlight focus on project managers in the pre-agile era.
So what happened after that? Now we were kind of moving away from the concept where one single focused person is essentially responsible for driving the whole team. Now the era is changing, moving away from being a stage case system to something where the needs are slightly smaller and repetitive. We'll briefly talk about some myths and realities that came along with that change that happened roughly in the era of about maybe 1995, 2000, 2001 when the concept was getting developed. The theory that developed was that the roles like Scrum Master, product owners are the ones who are going to take up all of the project manager responsibilities. So there is product, there is a person who is essentially responsible for running the team, driving the team, coordinating, and that person essentially becomes the Scrum Master. And then there is rest of the team who are now more matured individuals who have seen the industry move from last maybe 2 to 3 to 4 decades, and hence they can take up bigger responsibilities. There's another myth we would like to say, essentially, is that agile projects run all by themselves. True, not true, what does the audience feel?
Yeah, we're not saying this is reality, this is myth, but that's why you can see the question mark. But then we do believe that it's a very big selling package that comes along, that these projects run entirely, agile projects run entirely by themselves. What do you guys feel? Not true, not true, not true.
Is it?
Any dissenting voices to not true?
Maybe your designation is not a project manager, but role is required.
Okay.
That's an interesting perspective.
Yes, these days we have program managers, then we have product managers. So each one, like each role, they are taking the responsibility to project management. So yeah, I agree to what you said.
Well, yeah, makes our life a little bit easier, because what we feel is that between the myth theory and the enterprise reality that we have in our executions, there are whole 9 yards or even more than that we have to traverse. So what is that enterprise reality? We'll try to delve into that a little bit more now. So everybody, probably this picture might not be too visible at the back end, but what I'd say is there is a core team that is marked in the blue, right, background, and there is an extended team always. What is this core team? The core team is our regular roles that you require, whether you talk of Scrum or Kanban or Waterfall or whatever, the regular engineering team that you have, the developers, the quality analysts, let's say the design people, infrastructure, yes, in the purest sense, sometimes developers can be infrastructure analysts as well, but then the level of bifurcation industry has had, you do need certain specific roles. And then the product owner as well, right? And then what we've kept within the core team in an amber background is the role of an iteration manager, because inward looking, this core team has to churn out sprint over sprint or whatever durations you have of the core work or the outcome that will go out as a shippable increment, right? So that's the internal team, and that's where the iteration manager helps. It could be a developer who can play an iteration manager role per se, or it could be the product owner or anybody, right? As per the maturity, but we are the core roles. We are not talking about people, but the roles. Outside this core team, there is an extended team as well, where you will have, in an enterprise setting, probably an enterprise architect, probably a project sponsor, probably multiple other business SMEs on whom you will depend on getting to liaise to get the work that is required clarified and done. So what it means is that there is a lot of extended team coordination required from this core team to the extended team. Then there could be multiple teams like this, right, which are there in the enterprise, with whom the project team has to work for success. Enterprise products always have dependencies, right? So while you work towards those dependencies, you will always have risks and issues that will come up that will need to be catered to, that will need to be worked upon for the success of the core work that this core team itself is doing. Remember, those teams also have the similar structure as these teams have. What it means is that rates management and communication between these teams is extremely important for the success of the project, product, whatever terminology we might use. And definitely all of those become burdens of the core team, whose idea is to look inwards and provide valuable things that can go out. That's one part of the execution reality. The second part always is that yes, there are project sponsors and the like who'd always like to balance time as well as cost with the value that is getting generated. What it means is that whether we like it or not, there still are initiatives are strongly managed on what is the burn, how are we burning money, how are we burning on the timeline front, because a lot of initiatives are interconnected on, let's say there's a content driven initiative and there are marketing timelines associated. So the initiative has to close because a lot of other things have to be lined up for the success of that, right? So cost and time, how we are doing on it, where we are, become very critical factors for the success of initiatives. And then there is an internal organization as well. For example, those are the client-sided or delivery-related views, and then there is an organization of which we are also a part. If a project team is there, The teams are consistently forming. Do you guys agree? Why? Somebody comes in, somebody goes out. Where there is a fitment or not, somebody has to come in and then the wrap up, etc., everything. So it's not that there is one stable team, especially in longevity-oriented projects. So that's the reality. Org logistics is a reality. For instance, we're here at the conference today. How would we connect if probably agility today and the servant leaders hadn't collaborated amongst each other to get Leela, have this seating arrangement, etc. We are collaborating because somebody did this groundwork for us. People have to work on software. How do you get software licenses? How do you travel? You know, in Delhi NCR, if people are there, they know travel is a big issue. Wow, what about those logistics, right? And then there's people growth element as well. People growth element, from the other part that we sort of too delivery oriented, but then it depends upon people. And people in an organization need to grow. So how do we help being the bridges for people growth between the project executions and the overall organization? That's a very critical part as of today.
So purely from a strategic project management perspective, I think this is where the whole end-to-end outlook starts coming in. The kind of outcomes that you want to produce, not just for a smaller team, which could be an iteration or which could be a scrum team, or probably a large-scale project of varying sizes. You also have to kind of get to the realities of the end-to-end enterprise project management areas as well, whether it is in a services-based organization or probably in a captive, which is in the direct business of dealing with people. So it's a combination of both. And at the end of the day, the role of project managers obviously is set up, is very much valid, as you kind of all agreed, in an agile environment. So what do we need to do purely from a persona perspective? At the end of the day, all we have to do is essentially not do different things, because the core craft still remains the same. All we have to do is start doing things differently. And what are those different things? We kind of try to provide some dimensions around the changes that we'll need in those personas while we are on that journey to do those different things. Typical 6 key personas, which I think would largely cover anything and everything around the core craft. Very familiar terms, everybody in this room would have kind of spoken.
We wanted to focus on the key facets. We can have multiple further sub-bifurcations or whatever, but the key facets.
So things around planning, communication, process management, leadership, team management, anything and everything kind of falls largely into this bucket as well. What we want to do is now kind of go through each of these one by one, quickly browse through the slides, and then take inputs from this group to have you to express your viewpoints as well. I mean, planning as a core function, traditional versus agile, moving away from stage gates to something which is more outcome based. The degree of change that you can tolerate from a previous old model to probably a revisionalized model is obviously from low to high. How do you estimate the cost of failure? Is there failure in agile projects? Do agile projects fail? There are schools of thought where people would say agile projects do not fail. Well, they are not supposed to fail, because if agile project fails, then there is no point in being agile. Then you have not handled that chain properly, right? I'm sorry? We learn from our mistakes. But then there is a school of thought which says fail fast. So there is an element of failure, but essentially you are still failing. How do you deal with that failure? Do you celebrate that failure? Do you kind of make things which are different from what you have done earlier, and then still move ahead? That's how kind of that's one school of thought that kind of emerges.
On that,
as well.
the 2 key thoughts on failure, right? One, what is the magnitude of that failure and what point in time has it happened? So that's a fail fast, fail early. And then the second part, do we put a blame game on the failure, or do we learn from the failure and move on? Obviously, there is a correlation. If the quantum of failure is small, then we can move on potentially by learning from the failure. If the quantum of failure is way too big, that puts everything in jeopardy. Probably we might not be, I'm not saying we cannot, but we might not be able to move on. So that's the key essence.
Yep. Team management and building. Usually people look at team management and building as 2 different topics. But I think there's a need to kind of look at all of them as together. You cannot manage a team without building it. And building essentially covers all the aspects of growth, all the aspects of how you kind of end up dealing with them. Are you moving from a directional mode of team management to something which is like encourage signups? A lot of practices that we do in extreme programming essentially are around encouraging people to sign up and then pick up so that people are automatically motivated to do their stuff. Are you moving from task allocation to removing the dependencies, handling risks? So the change in the personas essentially are around these broad areas, but you're still involved in the core activity of ensuring that the team is able to do their work properly. And you take the role of a coach player rather than being a delegation, something like servant leaders would do, something like people who would want their team to be self-organized and then move away from a mode of a directional mode to essentially a self-running auto mode as well. And aligning everybody with the same interest, with the same goal, because without that why, just telling people the what and how of it, obviously the purpose obviously does not get achieved.
For example, you could even see this talk, Jasprit and me, we are pairing, right? So it's also kind of a team building and management because he builds more from my perspective, I build more from his perspective, and just like high school mathematics, if you remember, or physics, that if there are multiple vectors in divergent directions, the result, if all vectors are aligned in one direction, the resultant vector is always greater than the sum of the individual vectors, right? So at the end of the day, that is the essence, that if we align and if we work like that, the resultant will always be much better in the team. All right, then process management is an important aspect, whether we like it or not. And even, it's not that there are some misconceptions that agile projects don't have processes, right? Yes, they have processes, but then the importance is that it's not an enforcement of process from, let's say, a project manager, but rather it's the definition, joint collaborative definition, let's say during the project charter creation, facilitated by the project manager, by the team, of what is the process that the team wants to follow. I think that's the very first key element in the change in persona, that hey, I as a project manager will not be the best person to decide for the team that this is the process or this has been followed in the organization since eternity and this is what makes sense for us. Rather, how can we be collaborative? Because at the end, the team has to follow that process. And of course, once we define it, the project manager acts as one of the champions for adherence to that process and constantly looking inwards with the team to how to improve that process. Because again, stagnation is not the buzzword. You do it in the beginning, it does not mean that it will continue to remain relevant through the execution phases or through the changes in the team that might happen. Very simple example. For example, sometimes people say, yes, in the beginning of a project, we'll have a daily stand-up at 10 a.m. in the morning. But then, hey, then there are some team members who come and join, they come from far away and it's difficult for them to reach at 10. Why can't we do it at 11? Very simple things like that. But the point is, collaborative definition of the process, championing the adherence of the process. And then, what are processes for? What are they even for? Why do we define processes? Get value out of them? Yeah. They're just means to an end, correct? So if they're means to an end, the end matters more than the process. So of course, the outcome focus has to be there. If a particular process is not delivering that outcome, the team facilitated probably by the project manager or even the project manager constantly having a look at that outcome defines or reinvigorates the discussion of how are we meeting those options. And definitely those process changes, etc., always need to have that element of why. Why are we doing it? Because then you don't need to enforce it on the team. Then the team will do it itself. So I think these subtle changes within the persona definitely make a big impact in the existing ways or more popular ways of work. Moving on to an important element which always used to be considered as, let's say, in the traditional era, outside the project team per se, product support or product owner or be it any requirements provider, business SME, etc. You used to think that he or she is outside the team. It is the client or pseudo client outside the team. I think that's one big notion that we have to get away from and help facilitate the team also get away from, is that it's not a person who's outside the team, but rather extension of the team. Because at the end of the day, the collaborativeness with which we can work with the PO will determine the success of the project. So what does it mean from a project manager's perspective also, or that persona's perspective? By virtue of being an extension of the team, how are we setting that person up also for success? Because the person could be, in lots of times, the direct interface between the exact end users of the project or the product, right? So setting that person up for success, understanding the pain points, working towards tweaking internal processes, project governance mechanisms, or even how does the team connect and understand what is required, and sharing that broad product vision and helping people come to the same page on that helps actually in the overall success. So this is sometimes a subtle change but a very dramatic shift in the persona.
And I mean, what I have kind of seen is that a lot of project managers feel that dealing with the technical folks is probably very difficult. Setting up priorities on what task needs to be done at what time is probably the most difficult part. I personally found this to be more difficult than dealing with the tech folks, because this is where the core concept of the product lies. And then if you and the tech team is not aligned with the core concept of the product, there's bound to be conflicts in that whole holy triangle of product, technology, and management. Which is why this is like better said than done, is the concept where we kind of need to focus on the product areas in particular. Leadership, very, very hotly debated topic. Everybody would have multiple schools of thought on what leadership means, at what levels. I mean, we have people in our team who are inbuilt leaders. There is leadership which can be nurtured, but at the end of the day, moving away from having a persona that moves away from a command and control model to something which is more influence based and an empowering kind of model, obviously that persona is something which is usually more successful. We are not suggesting that what is written on the top around command control and taking and deciding the blame for failure is something which is not advisable. There are ways by which you can still make your situations successful by following a particular type of leadership model, whether IT or non-IT. I think everything has a merit and demerit of its own. But at the end of the day, what definitely is a sure shot winner from a persona perspective is your ability to embrace and learn from those failures and not getting into a situation where you go back to the previous ways of command and control. Communication, to sum it up, essentially outward, whether it is outward, whether it is one way, whether it is closed to something being bidirectional, inclusive, 360. I think all big buzzwords around the fact that how you are able to convey your message. And I think the last quote essentially may be applicable to this talk as well. The single biggest problem in communication is assumption that it has already been made. Unless you get that feedback out, whether the communication has been made, it should never be kind of considered closed. It is always two-way, it is always bidirectional. It cannot be one way. And we always see models in real life where one-way communication, what happens when one-way communication happens, whether it is on television channels or whether it is in our organizations. So what do we need? We've seen the personas that have been there in the system from a traditional ways of working. There are personas that are applicable for the new agile ways of working. Do we need to select? Show of hands. What do you think? Or
there are personas.
One way is best. Sorry.
There are personas who are making that transition from the traditional to the agile ways of working, right? So do we really need to select? Do we really need to say that there's one silver bullet that can take care of everything? Probably yes in certain scenarios, probably not. We still leave it as a question for you to ponder on and think in respect of your relevant scenarios in your organizations and the work that you do. But what we do believe is that.
So let's take an analogy with physics. The way physics has evolved in the last 100 years or more is essentially a division between classical physics and modern physics. On the dimensions of size and speed, the difference between classical and quantum has kind of evolved since probably the principles of relativity and quantum physics started coming in. Now keep this as one side of your mind frame. Look at it from a business and technology perspective. The dimensions that we will kind of measure software engineering would be largely around how business evolves and also around how complex the technology has become. And the journey of achieving the outcomes from being simple to chaos. So do we have personas? Am I that persona? Is Rahul that persona? Or everybody in this room individually are personas who can take us through this journey of simple, complicated, complex, and chaos at any points of time, because we cannot choose whether we want to do only chaotic projects or we want to do only simple projects. Or organizations can go through these journeys, individual journeys as well. So where does this leaves us to? From a end viewpoint perspective, I think we don't need one particular type of persona. What we essentially need is progressive personas. The persona, this is more of a marketing point term where the personas have been changing over a period of time, and it definitely applies to our craft as well, where you are always evolving and adapting.
Yeah, being able to evolve, number one, adapt, right? And the most important thing, project managers or we, as long as software development is done by people, empathy is an extremely critical trait, right? And then, because the ways of working is also changing, right? Unlearning and learning. I think these are key traits for progressive personas within project managers in particular, and probably others also in general. That how do we adapt to the changing scenarios? And we believe that if we focus on these traits, then we will have personas, project managers that are made to last. They are made to last long, and they're made to last very long. I think with this, we'll conclude our presentation. Definitely, I think we have a couple of minutes left. We're almost on time as well. So anything from the participants, we are open for a discussion right now. Please.
So one challenge that I see with the traditional project manager role is in the agile setup, they generally think in terms, so especially on the planning side, they generally think more in terms of long-term plan. What's our release plan? What's our 2-month plan? What's our 6-month plan? Now agile doesn't work that way. How do we handle that? How do project managers adapt in that thinking, in that mindset, in the agile setup?
Shall we ask a question before answering this? Be it agile or be it traditional, right? Do we say that we'll never have a view of the end outcome? For example, we do a lot of OKR exercises, etc., right? Even in agile, correct? So what's the point of that? We at least try to define, or what would be at least the road that will tread. It's, for example, okay, yes, we need to be at the summit of Mount Everest. We do that? Yeah? So at least that end point, that is defined. Probably in a traditional way, you might say, okay, I'll start from base camp 1 and Amchi Bazaar, and then I'll have this route, and that's where I'll go. And you would not, no matter what, you would not deviate from that path in a traditional way. In an agile way, probably what it is that, how are we able to define that release plan in a manner in which it is extremely acceptable to change? Wherein sprint over sprint, we are monitoring where we are, sprint over sprint, we are getting that feedback as well, and if there is any outcome changes do happen. They do happen. How are we able to adapt that? So basically, not being tied up to that one particular thing that, oh, this is the way, byway or highway, this is the way. But knowing at a macro level by virtue of a release plan of what and how we are going to accomplish it, because the release plan is of extremely small increments by virtue of the sprints that we are working on, we having that flexibility to adjust quickly. So planning, that's the key difference that at least we have noticed in the programs that we execute or we oversee in a project manager's persona. Jasmeet, you would like to?
I think the other way to look at it this is that as long as you're able to explain the ideology of Agile to your end consumer of that plan. So if I say release plan, the X product will be done in 7 months with $7 million. Now, how do you take that statement as a consumer? And are you developing the consumer? And in this case, I'm kind of talking about not the end customer, but the person who is like the executive sponsor of the project who's actually paying for it. So somebody whose neck is on the line with respect to ensuring that the product is delivered. So is that person really in the same mindset as you are while that product is evolving? And is that communication readily happening? That particular communication will happen when we kind of help that person become progressive as well as the product kind of evolves from one stage to another. And when both sides start speaking the same language, obviously your the primary kind of the primary fault of or the primary view of a product failing will automatically go away essentially.
I think we've said that we are out of time, but we have enough networking opportunities within the 2 days, so we'd be glad to continue the discourse over the networking things. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.